Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this episode, we're gonna be talking not so much about art. We're actually gonna be talking about how to create a budget. And I know this is an art channel, but I'm really passionate about this because I think money is one of those things that we don't really talk about, especially artists. It's sort of like a forbidden topic or a very sentimental topic, but I love talking about it. I think we need to talk about it more, and so I'm gonna be doing a lot of videos that relate to that subject. And I think this could be applied to anybody, not just artists, but I'm gonna try to turn it a little bit more towards the artists. But I think it works in the bigger spectrum. So stay tuned. I'm gonna be doing a couple of videos that relate to this subject, but today I just want to take a little bit of time and talk about probably one of the very first things that anybody that wants to get a little bit more control with their finances have to do, and also how to do it. Now, there is a lot of ways that you can do this. You probably have to find your own way on how to deal with this, the same way that I did. That's how you can create a budget. Now, I'm gonna start this with two quotes that I learned a couple years ago. One of them is, and I heard this from Dave Ramsey. If you don't know, you should check him out. I learned a lot from him. And one of those quotes is, "Your best wealth building tool is your income." And what that means is that if all your income goes away with debt and expenses and any other things that you probably don't even know, you really are losing control on how to build wealth. Now, talking about wealth, here comes the other quote that I learned. He says that wealth is a ratio, it's not actually a number. So when I heard this, it kind of clicked because it's actually true. You can know people that earned $500,000 a year, but they're broke because they spend it all, right? And you could have somebody that earns $50,000, $78,000 a year. They're actually pretty healthy because they keep their expenses very, very low. And so I want you guys to think about wealth as a ratio from what comes into your house as an income and what goes out as an expense. That ratio is what really should concentrate on, and you should make that ratio as big as possible. That way you have money left every single month, right? But I think one of the most important things is how to create a budget and what is a budget and all that. You probably heard that many times. This is for the people that have no idea how to deal with one or don't even know where to start. So let's jump right into that. Now, what is really a budget? And I don't want to get too technical. I don't want to drag this video out. I really want to go back, straight to the point. But a budget is really giving it a name to every single dollar that comes into your house as an income, right? So you should know what every dollar does in your expenses, and you should give it a name. What that means is you should give it a purpose. And so the great way to know that is to actually create a budget. One thing that is a good practice before starting everything is to actually know to go back into your monthly statements or what you spent the previous month, and to actually see where that money is going from, because I bet that a lot of people don't actually know penny by penny where their money is going to. Now, to me, the best way that I have found, and this has sort of evolved through the years, is to actually make a standard Google Sheets. This is a very similar sheet that I normally use every single month. Now, I'm going to actually link this to you guys because there's some mathematics here that I will go through. I will link this to you guys. So if you guys don't have one and want to use this one, you guys can use it completely for free. You can just get it, download it, make a copy in your G Drive and use it. But I want to go through this with you guys in sort of my way of thinking this sort of thing. Now, this might be a little too much or too intimidating for some people or not, but I'm gonna go through it, and it's gonna be super simple. Just to give you a little bit of backstory, I actually started in this journey probably about 4 years ago. One of my first goals was to be completely debt free, and me and my wife, we actually paid off 130, I think it was 132, $135,000 as debt that we had in about 3 years. And so it was a very long process. We made a lot of sacrifices. We still do. But we are now, ever since that time, we're actually now debt free, except the house. but we don't have any debt. We don't have any credit cards. Cars are paid off. Nothing that we owe to anybody except the house, which is going to be the next thing that we actually paid off. We're going to talk about a little bit more about that as we go forward, but let's actually jump into this sheet real quick. As you can see, this is my free-friendly budget here. Now you're going to see that I have all the months here of the year. I divide this into a yearly budget, but divide it in months. Now this top part here, this is what I call the essentials or the living expenses. And these are the things that I have to pay at the beginning of the month or whenever they're due. I have to pay them because these are my most essential things that I need to get or pay in order to continue my life, right? We have rent, mortgage. Now, this is going to be a little bit different for some people, but I think rent, food, transportation are things that you must need in order to continue living, right? I put a couple of these, internet, I work from home, so this is super essential. It might not be as essential as food, but it is pretty essential. So I try to keep here as minimal as possible, but I want to keep here the most very essential things. And these are the things that I'm going to pay off first. Normally what I do, I just put the number of what I have to pay for this. And for the most part, these things are consistent with their value, right? So rent usually stays consistent. Electric, internet, cell phone, groceries are pretty standard. Gasoline, if your car payment is usually stays the same, and insurance and all that. But these things are pretty consistent with their value, right? So this is something that you can figure out very quickly, right? And as you start putting them here, so let's say you pay, $1,500 for rent or mortgage, $50 on water, $100 electric, $100 on internet. You're gonna see that this keeps adding them here, and this is gonna be your total for all these items that you put here, right? Now you can reduce the items, you can add more items, but these are gonna be my essentials that I know for a fact that I need in order to continue living. And so these will be added down here. Now on the right side here on the blue, this is gonna be my take-home pay. Now this is also consistent normally for most people, right? So you're gonna have a full-time job, part-time, whatever the case may be, but normally full-time job. On the month you earn $5,000, and then sometimes you may get like a little freelance gig. You can take that average monthly of what you do on freelance, side hustles, or any extra income besides your full-time job, and this is gonna keep adding up. So I'm just gonna put some numbers here. So let's say you do 1,000 here, side hustle that gives you $300, gonna be the total income here. A lot of people, when they start doing the budget, one of the things they have to figure out is if they have a income problem or a spending problem. A lot of the times it's either or, but sometimes it's actually both. So sometimes the person is spending too much and they're not earning enough, but they can actually do things to earn more and spend less, right? So you have to figure out where is the majority of your problem, whether it's a spending problem or a income problem, and the budget is gonna help you do that. If you go down here now, you're gonna see, so I'm actually gonna keep these numbers here. So let's say, and this is my income here. Under expenses and subscription, this is stuff that you can actually control how much you spend monthly for the most part, right? So eating out, that is something that if it comes worst to worst case scenario, you just don't go out to eat and you spend $0, right? The key to this is to actually put a specific number or a quantity here to all these things and actually stick to that, right? So let's say to eating out, we're gonna keep $300, $200. For entertainment, that could be, going to the movies on the weekend, maybe going to concert or something like that is going to be sort of like an entertainment expense on that month. And then after that, I have subscriptions, Prime, Netflix, Patreon, Google Drive, Gym, and you can add or reduce from here. And you can start piling them up and in here. So maybe I spend $15 on Patreon, 12 on Netflix, Google Drive, $20, Disney Plus 15, Gym 60. I don't know the exact numbers of this, but it's just for example. And then on extras, at the end of the month, I started thinking about the things that could be a potential expense for the next month. So for example, if I need new shoes, then I put that for the budget for the next month. Or if I need new clothes, new art supplies, if I want to do something special that doesn't require too much money, if I need new tires for the car. And these are things that you can actually expect to happen, right? These are not really emergencies or surprises. You can tell if you're gonna need new shoes in the next couple of weeks or in the next couple of months, or same thing with clothes or art supplies, new tires as well. Now, I'm not talking about your car breaking down, or if you get super sick, that's more in the emergency department. But these are things that you can actually expect, and you can actually plan to put this on your budget so it doesn't really take a hole in your actual monthly budget. Right now down here, you're gonna see that this is sort of the total amount of everything in the expenses and subscription category here. Total expenses is gonna be the sum of this plus your living expenses, and then the balance is going to be what's left from your income and the difference of that and the total expenses here. So as you can see here in this scenario, I'm actually gonna take these two out just so we are a little bit closer here. Put on groceries, $800, $150 for gas. Car, let's say you make a payment of $350 with insurance of $100. Now you're gonna see here in this scenario that you are already negative $562. That means that you're spending $562 extra from what you make a year. This right here, if I take a look at this, these are the things that I'm gonna start to try to figure out if I have a income problem or a spending problem. Now, in this case, yes, maybe I can take out entertainment and eating out, and that's $500 a month, right? And now that brings me to $62 negative. I don't need the actual gym because maybe you can just run and go to the park and do workouts for free. And maybe I don't need Patreon for a while. This is something that you can sacrifice for a little bit, and then that way you're not negative. And so right now, I'm actually positive $13, and I'm still covering all the things that I need to live, right? You can swap this number as, depending on what you're having. We're just going with this example here. And so now I have $13 positive. Now I know for a fact that if I just keep doing this full-time job, I can live doing these things that I have here. Now, normally what I will do here is, okay, now that I cut down my expenses, I'm positive on my full-time jobs. Now I'm gonna try to figure out how can I fill these areas here and increase my income. That way this number is bigger and I have more money left monthly, right? And so maybe I find gigs, doing freelance that maybe brings me $500 a month, and maybe I do Uber a night, or I do, whatever the case may be, that maybe brings me $200 a month extra. So now I increase $700 extras every month, and I am $713 extra a month. We're increasing the income, but we're also keeping the same level of expenses. And this is something that a lot of people make the mistake, is that when they increase their income, then they start adding more expenses, and they're sort of keeping the same ratio. What I like to do is increasing this number, but keeping my expenses the same or even less. And the reason for that is because this $713, when we can round it off to 700, maybe I want to spend $13 now on Patreon, right? And I still have a good, $700 extra a month. Now I can use this to put to my either investments, to my debt. My main goal, as I was talking earlier, is to first is to reduce my debt, right? And so, for example, my car is debt here, but maybe you have credit cards as your living expenses, that's debt. Maybe you actually leasing your cell phone, and that's included in your cell phone bill. So maybe that could be $28 extra a month or $40 extra a month. If I reduce the debt in a couple months of my car, like I pay it off, then that means that this $350 is no longer there. So now I have $1,050 extra a month. So the $700 that I had before plus what I was paying for the car, that's $300. That's $1,000 a month. And those $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 a year, and that I could put to any other thing. And it's sort of like Dave Ramsey called it like a snowball effect, right? And so normally what I like to do is I pay the smallest debt first, and then what I was paying for that, then I add it to the next bigger debt. It's really powerful when you have no debt, because maybe you were paying, I don't know, $1,000 in items that were debt, right? But now that you pay those off, now you can use this $1,000 to do something else. Let's take a look at here at the savings plans. Personally, I like to have an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. So this number here for $1,200 of my expenses, I multiply that by 3 or 6, and that number I like to have that as cash in my account, just in case I lose my job, or a catastrophe happen, or some sort of medical emergency or something like that. I have that money that I can just go to the bank, take it out, and then actually use it for any any emergency. So that's sort of like my goal. And I normally put the goal over here, so $25,000. And as you can see here, this is going to be my goal for this particular item here. So my emergency fund is going to be $25. And maybe this month here, for out of this 1,000, maybe I put 500 to my emergency fund, have a balance of 25,500 bucks that I still need to put to reach this goal. Normally what I like to put in here is things in actual priority number. So I like to take care of one first, as quickly as possible, and move to the next and move to the next, depending on their priority and how fast I need them, right? So maybe if I need a new car and I probably need one in a year or 6 months, then this probably goes on the top of the list. To me, emergency fund is a critical thing because you just don't know when things might happen, and having that, liquid in an account where you don't touch it is a really nice sign of relief that you're gonna have. Just in case you don't have to worry about if anything happens, right? And so here I put, medical expenses. Now, what I like to do about medical expenses is I like to have a specific amount every year, depending on the insurance that you have, the out-of-pocket expenses and all that. I like to have, from $3,000 to $5,000 just to cover anything medical. So for example, my wife had a really bad, it was like a flu, but her lungs were really inflamed because of the coughing. And she was like that for like 2 months. And we had to go to the hospital and get meds and all that. And if I didn't had an actual account or a separate bucket of money just for medical expenses, then I had to use the money from other things like my normal income or the emergency fund or any other bucket that I had, which will create a hole of that bucket. And so because I had that money separated, I knew that I didn't have to worry about money. I just needed to take that money out because that money had the name of medical expenses. And so I only used it for that. And the same thing for the new car. So for example, now that I'm debt free, I don't lease or I don't finance anything at all, right? And so, for example, I know I'm going to need a new car. So I am saving for a new car. So whenever I get, whatever car I'm going to get, I am saving cash for that car. And so whenever I get that car, I just pay cash for it. I don't need to worry about payments or adding payments to my monthly expenses. The same thing for vacations, new computer and all. And these are the things that I know are going to happen. And so I can actually plan for them. And so now this last part is going to be the prepaid yearly plan. Now, these right here are sort of part of my living expenses. So I'll give you an example. This first item here. So we actually, me and my wife, we actually pay for a part of her mom's home, a monthly payment. And so I know exactly the amount. And so let's say, for example, that amount is $250 every month, right? So I know that in a year, I'm going to be paying $3,000 for that particular item. And so normally what I like to do, and let's say, for example, during the year, I get a freelance job or I get a gig or I get a bonus or I get any other extra income outside of my full-time job, I actually put a bucket of $3,000 for that specific thing. So I don't have to actually take it out of my monthly payments. I just take it out of that account and that pays for itself every month, right? And the same thing for, I have a rent security sitting, so that's like, I think like $200 a year. And so once I get $200 extra in some sort of way, I separate that for the next year, and then I know I have that paid off for the next year. And so that way, and I do the same thing for car insurances. So normally you can pay 6 months of car insurance. Let's say that's, I don't know, $800 or $900. Once I get that money, I save it. And when the time comes, I just pay it off all at once, so I don't have to make monthly payments. And that way, every month I have more money in my pocket. You're going to see that down here, there's another tab here, and this is for income. Now, this is for me. I normally use this to add every time I get any sort of income here, and this helps me keep track of how much I'm earning every month. And that way, that sort of helps me to know which months. So once you have a couple of years of this, you will know which months are better, which months are worst. But the budget is probably the most important thing here. Now, the last part of this is how you can actually track your expenses every single day or every single month, right? Because once you have the budget, now you know how much you're spending or how much is your budget per item. But now every time you go out to groceries or you buy something online or you go out to eat, you need to track that every time you do that, right? So you know that you don't go over budget. And you could do this in many ways. There's a lot of apps The one that I use is EveryDollar. There's a free version of that. You can just download it, and you can actually put the month for that income, and then put every item that you have set up on your budget in your app. And every time, let's say for example that you put gas on the car and you have a budget of $200, and you put how much you put into gas for that day, and that will tell you, how much you have remaining, how much you have spent on each of the items, and you can easily track this. So what I do is just every time I use my car or cash or anything like that, I immediately go to the app, put it in. That way I don't forget, and then I just keep track that way. I'm gonna be doing other tips and tricks, financial things that you can do as an artist later on in another video. But I think starting with a budget is one of the most healthiest things that you can do, because that way you can actually know where every single penny that you earn goes. And I think that's probably the most important part. So yeah, so I really hope that this was of some help to some of you guys. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys in the next one.